Hello, my name is Nick Shotkoski, and I'm a senior in the AIM program covering domestic healthcare. Today I will be presenting Medpace Holdings, ticker MEDP. Medpace Holdings is a contract research organization, or CRO, that provides outsourced clinical development services to the biotechnology, pharmaceutical, and medical device industries. Their business is focused on providing outsourced full-service phase 1 through 4 clinical trial services, including pharmacovigilance, clinical monitoring, and study startup and design. While they serve clients of all sizes, the majority of their revenue is received from small and mid-sized biopharmaceutical companies due to the cost efficiencies of their offerings, as well as Medpace's familiarity conducting clinical trials. The company provides services across all therapeutic areas with a demonstrated strength in oncology, metabolic disease, central nervous system, and antiviral markets. Medpace receives the vast majority of their revenues from the U.S., but conducts operations globally to maximize their patient sample size. The company was founded in 1992 and is headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. The FDA approval process is an arduous and costly process that routinely takes 10 to 15 years to complete. A recent Tufts University study estimated that the cost of developing a new FDA-approved drug sits at $2.6 billion, far more than the $802 million reported in 2003. At the same time, as drug development costs have skyrocketed, pharmaceutical companies have faced increased pricing pressure from regulators and the expiration of legacy patents, placing a significant amount of pressure on industry profit margins. As a result, biopharmaceutical companies have had to search for new ways to maintain the high margins they have become accustomed to. One of the main ways they have done so is by turning to CROs to improve the efficiency of their drug development. CROs are able to conduct these clinical trials far more efficiently than the biopharmaceutical companies can due to their therapeutic expertise, trial experience, and existing infrastructure. In 2019, it is estimated that $45 billion worth of phase 1 through 4 development costs were outsourced to CROs, and roughly $16 billion of that was spent by small and mid-sized biopharmaceutical companies. Medpace is uniquely positioned within the CRO market as they are focused on providing full-service outsourced offerings for phase 1 through 4 clinical trials with a focus on small and mid-sized clients. CROs are particularly attractive for this size company as they often lack the capital to purchase the infrastructure to conduct their own trials, their management often lacks experience conducting clinical trials, and they lack the financial flexibility to recover from a mishandled trial. Medpace's full-service offering has allowed them to develop industry-leading EBITDA margins and the ability to grow with their clients as they advance through FDA trial phases. In addition to benefiting from the growing demand for CRO outsourcing, Medpace is set to benefit from their leadership in oncology research, the growth in orphan drugs and specialized medicine, and a barrier-friendly funding environment for emerging biotech companies. For these reasons, it is recommended that Medpace Holdings be added to the AIM Small Cap Fund at a recommended price target of $133.08, representing an upside of 19.1%. Now on to my first driver, Oncology Expertise. For years, oncology drugs have dominated the global pharmaceutical market, and they accounted for $143 billion worth of sales in 2019, which is roughly 20% of the total pharmaceutical sales. Despite the increased sales and development of cancer drugs, there is still a great deal of work to be done, as cancer is still the second leading cause of death in the U.S. As a result, the market for cancer drugs is expected to grow at a 12% CAGR through 2024 and reach $250 billion annually. In response to this staggering growth, the expenditure on oncology research and development is expected to be 3 times that of any other area, according to Evaluate Pharma, totaling $82 billion between now and 2026. This is reflected in the FDA pipeline, where 6,504 of the 22,684 drugs currently in development are focused on the treatment and prevention of cancer. This bodes very well for Medpace, as their largest therapeutic area by revenue is oncology. Their extensive experience conducting clinical trials in this therapeutic area will allow them to continue their impressive growth for the foreseeable future. Now on to my second driver, growth in specialty medicine and orphan drugs. Orphan drugs are defined as drugs that treat rare diseases and disorders that affect less than 200,000 people. In the U.S., over 7,000 rare diseases affect a total of 30 million Americans each year. For years, these diseases and potential treatments have been overlooked by biopharmaceutical companies as they sought to find approvals for more economically enticing drugs. Moreover, favorable legislation in the U.S. has turned these into a focus for many pharmaceutical companies, and the market for orphan drugs is expected to grow at a 12.3% CAGR through 2024 to over $242 billion. Although many of the sales are dominated by large pharmaceutical companies, much of the innovation and development is done by small biotech companies who are later bought by these larger players. As an example, 13 of the top 20 phase 3 orphan drugs by expected sales are owned or were acquired from small and mid-sized biopharmaceutical companies. Now on to my third driver, favorable biotech funding environment. In the second quarter, biotech companies raised a record of $6.4 billion from venture capital companies and $17.6 billion from IPOs and follow-on offerings to reach a total of $24 billion in equity raised, the highest ever recorded for a quarter. This unprecedented capital raising will allow these companies to continue to fund more drug trials in the future. Because these trials take years to conduct, the increased number of trials provides a long-lasting boost to CRO revenue growth. The last peak in biopharmaceutical funding was seen in 2018, and since then, Medpace's net book-to-bill ratio has remained above 1.2 in each quarter except for Q1. So that's how much they're bringing in new contracts compared to how much revenue they're recognizing. So it's good to have that number higher than 1, and 1.2 is excellent. The Federal Reserve's stance to keep rates low should help this environment to continue for the foreseeable future and allow biotechs to keep accessing capital. Now for the valuation. Using a weighted average cost of capital of 7.26% and a terminal growth rate of 2%, I arrived at an intrinsic value of $127.59. Using a price to cash flow multiple of 23.09, I arrived at a relative value of $131.62. Lastly, utilizing a PE multiple of 58.72, I arrived at a relative value of 174.41. By weighting these models 70-20-10, I arrived at a price target of 133.08, representing an upside of 19.1% from Wednesday's close. Next, I will touch on some key risks. The first risk is COVID-19. The effects of COVID-19 have made it very difficult to conduct some clinical trials. While backlog cancellations have remained in line with historical rates, a second shutdown could cause potential clinical trials to be pushed back further or canceled entirely. Next is confidential data protection. The nature of Medpace's business forces them to collect confidential information on patients and client data. If they experience a data breach, the reputational harm and potential litigation would be very detrimental to the company's operations. Lastly, a softening in the biotechnology funding environment could have a detrimental effect on those companies' ability to fund clinical trials. Now, briefly for the management, August Trandell is the founder, president, and CEO of Medpace. He has served in this capacity since the company's founding in 1992 and previously worked as a medical review officer at the FDA. Jesse Geiger serves as Medpace's CFO and COO and has been with the company since 2007. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and I look forward to seeing you guys for the Q&A on Friday. Thanks.